You are afraid of death, so you avoid life, you play it safe, you take the secure job instead of the risky one, you stay in the relationship that's comfortable instead of the one that scares you, you say yes when you mean no, you keep your head down, you don't make waves, you numb yourself with distractions, scrolling through other people's lives, drinking just enough to soften the edges, binge-watching entire seasons in a single sitting, anything to avoid the silence where the truth lives. You tell yourself you're being responsible, practical, smart, but the truth is simpler and more devastating. You're afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of pain, and beneath all of it, afraid of death. Afraid that if you take the risk, if you live fully, if you expose yourself to the world without armor, you will be destroyed. So you don't live, you survive. You move through your days like a ghost, half present, half gone, waiting for someday when you have more money, someday when you're more confident, someday when the timing is right, someday when you're ready. But someday never comes, and the years pass, and you are still waiting, still playing it safe, still dying slowly. Because here's the truth you already know but refuse to face. Most people die long before their bodies stop breathing. They die the moment they stop taking risks, the moment they choose comfort over courage, the moment they decide that safety is more important than being alive. Ernest Hemingway did not die this way. He lived toward death, not away from it, not in denial of it, not pretending he had infinite time. He walked into war zones, bullfights, deep-sea fishing expeditions, African safaris, not because he was reckless, not because he had a death wish, but because he understood something most people never learn, that facing death is the only way to truly live, that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear make you small, that life without risk is not life at all. He called it the code hero, the man who faces chaos, violence, meaninglessness, death, and does so with grace, with dignity, with simplicity, not because he believes life has inherent meaning, but because he chooses to live as if it does, because he refuses to surrender to fear, because he knows that how you face death is how you face life. And most people fail the code every single day. They fail it when they choose the safe option. They fail it when they lie to avoid conflict. They fail it when they numb themselves instead of feeling. They fail it when they pretend they have forever. They are already dead. They just haven't stopped breathing yet. Hemingway was 18 years old when he volunteered to drive ambulances in World War I. 18. Most 18-year-olds today are navigating college applications and social media anxieties. Hemingway went to the Italian front, to the trenches, to the place where young men were being obliterated by artillery shells, where bodies were torn apart, where death was not a concept but a present, immediate, unavoidable reality. On July 8, 1918, he was hit by shrapnel from an Austrian mortar shell. Over 200 pieces of metal tore into his legs. He should have died right there in the mud. Instead, he carried a wounded Italian soldier to safety. Despite his own wounds, despite the pain screaming through his body, despite the very real possibility that he would bleed out before reaching the aid station, he was awarded a medal for bravery. But the real award was something else entirely. It was the wound, not just the physical one, though, that never fully healed. The shrapnel stayed in his body for the rest of his life. Some pieces worked their way to the surface decades later, little reminders emerging from his skin like memories he couldn't bury. The wound he carried was deeper than flesh. It was psychological, existential. It was the knowledge that death is real, that it comes suddenly, that it does not care about your plans or your potential or your belief that you have time. Most people learn this eventually, when someone they love dies, when they receive a diagnosis that changes everything, when they survive an accident that should have killed them, when something forces them to confront the fact that life is temporary and fragile and can end at any moment without warning or reason. But most people, even after learning this, go back to sleep. They return to their routines, their distractions, their comfortable denial. The knowledge fades, they forget, they pretend, they go back to living as if they have forever. Hemingway never forgot. The wound stayed open, and instead of closing it, instead of numbing it, instead of running from it, he built his entire philosophy of life around it. The code is simple. Face death with grace. Live with courage. Do not lie. Do not complain. Do not explain. Do not make excuses. Accept that life is meaningless and live as if it matters anyway. This is not nihilism. Nihilism is the surrender. The belief that because nothing matters, nothing is worth doing. The code is the opposite. It is the refusal to surrender. It is the acknowledgement that life has no inherent meaning, and the choice to create meaning through action, through courage, through how you conduct yourself in the face of chaos. Hemingway's novels are full of code heroes, men who face death and do not flinch, who endure suffering and do not complain, who lose everything and do not break. In The Old Man and the Sea, Santiago fights a marlin for 3 days. He catches it. It is the greatest fish he has ever seen, a creature of such beauty and power that it feels almost sacred. And then the sharks come. They tear into the marlin. They eat it piece by piece. By the time Santiago reaches shore, there is nothing left but bones. He has lost. He has failed. The great fish is gone. And yet he does not regret the fight. He does not regret the effort. He does not curse the sharks or the sea or his own bad luck. He simply accepts. He tried. He gave everything. That is the code. In A Farewell to Arms, Frederick Henry deserts the Italian army, not because he is a coward, but because he realizes the war is absurd. Men are dying for nothing. There is no glory in it, no honor, just slaughter, young men being fed into the machinery of nationalism and coming out as corpses. So he walks away. He chooses love over duty, Catherine over the code of nations, and then Catherine dies in childbirth. He loses her. He loses the baby. He loses everything he thought he was saving by leaving the war. And the novel ends with him walking away in the rain. No resolution, no meaning, no redemption, just loss. But he does not collapse. He does not fall apart. He endures. That is the code. In For Whom the Bell Tolls, Robert Jordan fights for the Republicans in the Spanish Civil War. He knows he is going to die. He knows the mission will probably fail. He knows the cause is already lost, that fascism is going to win, that everything he is fighting for will be crushed. And he fights anyway, because the fight itself is what matters, because standing for something, even when that something is doomed, is better than standing for nothing. He dies at the end alone, wounded, waiting for the fascists to find him, but he dies on his terms. That is the code. The code is not about winning. It is about how you lose. It is about facing the inevitable with dignity. It is about refusing to let fear, pain, or meaninglessness turn you into something less than you are. Most people do not live by the code. They live by comfort, by safety, by the avoidance of difficulty. They lie to themselves and call it self-care. They avoid conflict and call it maturity. They numb their feelings and call it coping. They play small and call it being realistic. And they die inside, slowly, quietly, invisibly. They become hollow, going through the motions, performing a life, pretending to be alive while actually being terrified of living. Hemingway saw this everywhere. He called them the hollow men, the people who looked alive but were already dead, the ones who had given up on courage, on honesty, on presence, the ones who had chosen safety over truth, and he despised them, not with cruelty, but with a kind of grief, because he knew what they were missing. He knew what it felt like to be truly alive, and he knew they would never know it, because they were too afraid to face death. Hemingway was obsessed with bullfighting. Most people see this as machismo, as performative masculinity, as Hemingway playing the role of the tough guy, the hard drinker, the man's man. But it was not that, or not only that. Hemingway saw in bullfighting something most people miss, a meditation on death. The matador enters the ring knowing he might die. The bull is not a metaphor. It is not symbolic. It is 2,000 pounds of muscle and rage and horn. It wants to kill him, and it can. One mistake, and the matador is gored, bleeding out in the sand while the crowd watches. But the matador does not run. He stands, he moves with grace, he controls his fear. He performs a series of movements, passes with the cape, the final thrust of the sword, that require absolute precision, absolute presence, absolute courage. This is not about cruelty to the bull, though Hemingway understood that criticism and did not fully answer it. For him, the bullfight was about the matador's relationship to death. It was about the willingness to face mortality with style, with elegance, with what Hemingway called grace under pressure. Grace under pressure. This is the essence of the code, not panicking when the situation is desperate, not collapsing when the pain is unbearable, not lying when the truth is dangerous, not running when death is near. Most people, when faced with pressure, lose their grace. They lash out. They blame others. They make excuses. They fall apart. They betray their own values because the fear is too great. The code hero does not. He endures. He remains himself even when the world is falling apart. He maintains his dignity even when there is no reason to. This is what Hemingway admired in the matador. Not the killing, but the refusal to be broken by fear, the ability to stand in the presence of death and not flinch, to move with precision and beauty, even when one wrong step means annihilation. You have moments like this, maybe not with bulls, but with life, when you are tested, when the pressure is overwhelming, when you are afraid and exhausted, and everything in you wants to collapse. And you have a choice. You can lose your grace. You can panic, you can lie, you can run, you can betray yourself, or you can hold the line. You can stay present. You can tell the truth. You can face what you're afraid of. You can maintain your dignity, even when no one is watching. This is the code, and most people fail it, not once, but constantly. Every single day, they fail it when they lie to avoid discomfort. They fail it when they numb themselves instead of feeling. They fail it when they choose convenience over integrity. They fail it when they pretend they are fine, when they are not. They fail it when they let fear dictate their choices. And slowly they become hollow. They lose themselves, not all at once, but piece by piece, choice by choice, until one day they wake up and realize they do not recognize the person they have become. Hemingway's writing is the code in literary form. Short sentences, simple words, no adornment, no explanation, no sentimentality, just the thing itself. Direct, clear, honest. Most writers write to impress, to show off their vocabulary, to demonstrate their intelligence, to hide behind cleverness. Hemingway wrote to tell the truth. He believed that if you stated the facts clearly, if you trusted the reader, if you did not explain or embellish or manipulate, the emotion would come through on its own, that the reader would feel what needed to be felt without being told what to feel. This is harder than it sounds because telling the truth is terrifying. It requires you to be simple, to be direct, to be vulnerable. It requires you to trust that the truth is enough, that you do not need to dress it up, that you do not need to perform. Most people cannot do this. In writing or in life, they perform, they hide, they explain too much because they are afraid the truth will not be understood, or worse, that it will be understood and rejected. Hemingway refused to do this. His sentences are acts of courage. When he writes, he was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish. He is not showing off. He is not trying to impress you with poetic language. He is simply stating the fact, and the fact contains everything: the loneliness, the perseverance, the quiet dignity of a man who keeps going even when he is failing. When he writes, the world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places. He is not being sentimental. He is stating a truth about suffering, about what it does to people, about how some people let it destroy them, and others let it make them stronger. This is the code in language. No lies, no excuses, no hiding, just the truth stated simply, with the faith that the truth is enough. And this is how Hemingway tried to live. He did not always succeed. He was an alcoholic. He was cruel to his wives. He was competitive and insecure and sometimes petty. He failed the code in 1,000 small ways. But he kept trying. He kept pushing himself. He kept refusing to settle. He kept living as if it mattered. By his 60s, Hemingway was breaking. His body was failing. Decades of hard living had taken their toll. His liver was damaged from drinking. His kidneys were failing. He had survived 2 plane crashes in Africa, both of which left him with permanent injuries, broken vertebrae, ruptured organs, burns. He had headaches that never stopped, memory problems, depression that no amount of drinking could numb. But worse than the physical pain was the creative decline. He could not write anymore, not the way he used to. He would sit at his desk and nothing would come. The sentences that had once flowed so easily were now laboured, clumsy, wrong. He would write a paragraph and delete it, write it again, delete it again. He was losing the thing that made him who he was. For most people, this would be sad. For Hemingway, it was unbearable, because writing was not just what he did. It was the code. It was the way he faced death, the way he made sense of chaos, the way he maintained his dignity in a meaningless world. Without it, he was nothing. He knew this, and he could not accept it. He tried electroshock therapy. It did not work, or it worked too well. It erased his memory along with his depression. He could not remember the stories he wanted to tell, could not access the experiences he wanted to write about. He was hollowing out, becoming the thing he feared most. A man who had once lived with such intensity, such courage, such refusal to surrender, now reduced to confusion, pain, dependency. He could not bear it. On July 10th, 1961, at his home in Ketchum, Idaho, Ernest Hemingway took a shotgun, put it to his head, and pulled the trigger. He was 61 years old. People call this a tragedy. A great writer destroyed by depression, by alcohol, by the relentless pressure of fame and expectation. And maybe it is. Maybe there is no other way to see it. A man who gave the world some of its most honest sentences, who taught generations how to write with clarity and courage, reduced at the end to confusion and pain, and the inability to do the one thing that made him who he was. But there is another way to understand what happened in that house in Ketchum on the morning of July 2000, 1961. Hemingway lived by the code: face death with grace, live with courage, do not let fear make you small, do not surrender to chaos, do not become hollow. And when he could no longer do that, when his body failed him, when his mind failed him, when he could no longer write, when he was becoming the very thing he had spent his entire life refusing to become, he made a choice. He chose death over diminishment. He chose to end his life on his terms rather than let it be taken from him slowly, piece by piece, memory by memory, sentence by sentence, until there was nothing left but a shell with his name on it. This is not an endorsement of suicide. It is an acknowledgement that Hemingway, even in his final act, was trying to live by the code. He was trying to maintain his dignity. He was trying to face death the way he had always faced it, directly, without flinching, without pretending. And the question this leaves you with is not whether his choice was right. The question is whether you are living by any code at all. You are not. Not really, you know this. You have been living by convenience, by comfort, by the path of least resistance. You tell yourself you are being smart, being practical, being responsible, but the truth is, you are being afraid of what it would cost to live with actual courage, afraid of what you would have to give up, afraid of who you would have to become. So you play it safe. You take the job that pays well but empties you out. You stay in the relationship that is comfortable but not real. You numb yourself with distractions that you pretend are relaxation. You avoid the difficult conversations. You swallow your truth to keep the peace. You perform a version of yourself that everyone approves of, while the real you withers somewhere deep inside where no one can see it dying. This is not living. This is dying slowly while your body is still breathing. Hemingway knew this. He saw it everywhere. The hollow men, the people who had given up on courage without even realizing they had done it, the ones who told themselves they were happy while their eyes were already dead, the ones who had stopped taking risks so long ago they could not even remember what it felt like to want something badly enough to fight for it. You are becoming one of them. Maybe you already are. You can feel it, can't you? The flatness, the sense that you are going through the motions, the awareness that you are performing your life rather than living it, the knowledge that you're playing small, playing safe, playing a role, and calling it maturity when it is actually just fear. The code asks something different of you. It asks you to live toward death instead of away from it, to face what you're afraid of instead of spending your entire life in elaborate avoidance, to tell the truth even when lying would be easier, to have the conversation you have been putting off for months because you know it will be painful and difficult, and there is no guarantee it will end well, to choose the uncertain path not because you're confident it will work out, but because the safe path is killing you and you know it. It asks you to feel your grief instead of numbing it, to sit with the pain instead of reaching for the drink, the screen, the distraction, the anything that will keep you from having to be present with what hurts, to apologize when you are wrong even though your pride is screaming at you to defend yourself, to justify, to explain why it was not really your fault, to stand up for what you believe even when it costs you the approval you have been chasing, the relationship you have been clinging to, the security you have been using as an excuse not to live. This is what the code looks like in your actual life, not in a war zone, not in a bull ring, but here now, in the small choices you make every single day that either move you toward courage or away from it, and you have been moving away from it. You know the moments. The times you said yes when you meant no. The times you stayed silent when you should have spoken. The times you chose comfort over truth. The times you let fear make the decision for you, and then told yourself it was the smart choice, the mature choice, the responsible choice. You remember them? They accumulate, each one a small death, each one a piece of yourself you gave away because you were afraid of what it would cost to keep it. Hemingway said, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong at the broken places. But you have to let the breaking happen. You have to face it. You cannot numb your way through it. You cannot avoid your way around it. You cannot pretend it is not happening while you slowly dissolve into someone you do not recognize. You have been broken. Everyone has. The question is what you're doing with it. Are you hiding the broken places, covering them up, pretending they do not exist? Or are you letting them teach you what matters? Are you letting them show you that you do not have forever? That life is not a rehearsal? That you're going to die, and the only question that matters is whether you will have lived first? Because here is the truth. Hemingway understood, and you're still avoiding, you are going to die. Not someday in the distant future when you are old and ready and have had time to prepare. Someday soon. Maybe today, maybe next year, maybe in 30 years. But it is coming. And you do not get to choose when. You do not get to wait until you are ready. You do not get to say, not yet, I still have things to do, I still have time. You do not have time, you have now. And the question is not whether life has meaning. The question is whether you will create meaning through how you live, through your choices, through your courage, through your refusal to surrender to fear. The code is not complicated, it is not a system. It is not a set of rules you can follow to make everything make sense. The code is this: face death with grace, live with courage, do not lie, do not hide, do not become hollow. You are failing this. You know you are. You can feel the hollowness growing, you can feel yourself shrinking, you can feel the distance between who you are and who you are pretending to be getting wider every day, and you can keep failing it. You can keep playing it safe, you can keep numbing yourself, you can keep waiting for someday, you can keep pretending you have forever, and one day your body will stop breathing and no one will notice because you stopped living years ago. Or you can start now, not when you're ready, not when the timing is right, not when you have more courage or more clarity or more certainty. Now, today, with the fear still present, with the uncertainty still there, with the risk still real, you can tell the truth you have been avoiding. You can have the conversation you have been dreading. You can take the risk you have been talking yourself out of. You can stop numbing and start feeling. You can stop hiding and start being seen. You can stop performing and start living. This will not be comfortable. The code is not about comfort. It is about dignity. It is about refusing to let fear turn you into something less than you are. It is about facing death, not the literal death that is coming for you eventually, but the small deaths you die every day when you choose safety over truth, and saying, no, I will not die this way. I will not become hollow. I will not give up on courage just because courage is hard. Hemingway is dead. He has been dead for over 60 years. But the code is not. It is here. It is waiting. It is asking you the same question it asked him. Will you face death? Or will you spend your life running from it, and in running miss the only life you have? The wound is real. The fear is real. The meaninglessness is real. But so is the choice to live with courage, to face what you're afraid of, to refuse to be small, to create meaning, not through belief or hope or faith that it will all work out, but through action, through presence, through the willingness to be here fully, Even when here is painful and uncertain and offers no guarantees, this is the code. Face death, live anyway. Not because it will be easy, not because it will work out, not because you will be rewarded or recognized or even remembered, but because the alternative, the slow death of comfort, the gradual hollowing out, the life unlived, is unbearable. You already know this. You have always known this. The question is not whether you know it. The question is whether you will do anything about it. The code is not asking you to be perfect. It is not asking you to be fearless. It is asking you to be honest, to be present, to be willing to face what you're afraid of, instead of spending your entire life in elaborate avoidance of it. Hemingway lived this way until he could not anymore, and when he could not, he chose to end it rather than become the thing he despised. You do not have to make that choice, but you do have to make a choice. To live with courage or to die slowly, to face death or to run from it, to be present or to keep performing. The choice is now, not later, not when you are ready. Now, face death, live anyway. That is the code.